We here. John, how you like this new picture?
I love it.
You love it?
We're missing the wine glasses.
That's it, because that means this is not for you.
I know, right?
Well, guys, as you guys can see, we both have masks on, but we are in a safe distance. So, for the sake of you hearing what we have to say, it doesn't sound muffled, we are going to remove the mask so you can hear, okay? Sounds good, John?
Absolutely.
So, and guys, if you cannot hear us for whatever reason, because sometimes technology don't always work the way we want it,
Right.
okay? So if you guys have any difficulties hearing or understanding what we are saying, please comment. I'm reading the comments as we go along so we can see if there is any questions. So just write up, hey, Ru, we cannot hear, or too low, or whatever. Let me know. John, thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
John, we are still in a crisis.
Yes.
COVID's still around. Vaccines have been sent to the states, to the counties. People think that they can just go and get it, but that's not how it works. There is a process. And many people also know that there is a process, but they don't know how the process works or how to navigate. I understand that your office is working on how to direct, instruct, and tell people. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, yes, the information can be confusing. The federal government has distributed vaccines across the United States. At first, all medical professionals were going and getting the vaccines, as frontline workers, and the state is setting a priority for those who are most in contact with people, or may come in contact with people with COVID. So first, they are getting all the doctors, all the nurses, those who are working in nursing facilities. And then the next phase, they're distributing it to some of our first responders, those who are EMTs, and then we'll see certain people in the teaching profession have an opportunity to get it, our seniors, of course, and then it'll continue to trickle down to the general public getting the vaccine. So what my office is doing, you can reach out to my office at 377-6314. And if you have any questions at all, we can try to assist you and find out whether or not you're currently eligible to get the vaccine or when you'll be eligible. So I'll give you an example. This weekend I went onto the state website and I wanted to help out my grandparents to see when or if they were eligible. And the options are the state will communicate with you by email or by text message. And my grandparents still have the old flip phones, so they don't have email and they don't have text message. Mm-hmm. So my office will be there to help assist people who have a question as to whether or not they can get the vaccine and when and where.
Hold on, I'm getting a call that it's slow, so let me just change this setting. We'll move on.
All right. How's that? Any better?
After the sound, and that's Actor Santiago, he's watching us.
Oh,
Actor always watches my shows. So it's the community leader, the creator of Stop and Shake. So there is a lot of information that is important. So Actor, can you hear us now? So guys, we're going to keep moving. So if you cannot hear, please let me know. Comment just like Actor just did. Too low, too high, or whatever. Are you saying that there is a system now in place that I can go there and sign up for the vaccine and they will let me know? I did not know this.
So you can, if you go onto my Facebook page or Instagram at facebook.com/Councilman John Rubbo, and there'll be a link in one of our more recent posts over the weekend that you can click and it'll bring you to the state website. There you put in your name, your birthday, your address, and it'll tell you whether or not you're eligible to get a vaccine yet.
Now, John, before we go any further, I have to do a shout out I was just waiting for people to start logging in. We have to give a shout out to Las Dos Marias, Mexican restaurant, delicious food, right here in Yonkers. You don't need to go to New York City, Bronx, or whatever. You can have it right here in our city. 200, is this Main Street or New Main?
This is Main Street.
Main Street, 200 Main Street, intersection of Main and Neverland, right at the corner, next to Tacos El Poblano. And guys, if you come over, if you love wine, this is one that you need to try out. Amarone Vinette. It's not cheap, they tell me. But you know what? Alfonso is not interested in giving you the cheapest. He's interested in giving you the best.
The quality.
The quality.
Alfonso provides quality. Yeah.
Quality. This is all about quality. If you want to eat, cheap Mexican food, you go to one of these cheap restaurants. You can have it there, fast food Mexican. Here, it's about quality, not about the price. Also, Molino del Piano. I can give my
That's very good time.
yes. Is Brunello Montalcino. Come over, come down, ask for a bottle, enjoy a glass of wine with fine Mexican food. And don't forget, right down the block, you have Yonkers Brewery.
Right.
This place. Also, if you're going to have a taste of fine beer, homemade beer, correct?
Yes, we make it all on site.
All made on site, fresh, delicious. Chicken wings there?
Yes, sir.
Have some beer, chicken wings, listen to some music, bring friends, have fun, and enjoy. Now let's go back to business.
Yes.
Okay? So you can sign up, and then what? When your time comes, they will notify you here?
So as you sign up, and the site wasn't completely clear, which is why we want to set up this. Sure.
Yeah.
We want to be able to set up this the system here locally for people to be able to call in, and we will help navigate as best we can, especially for our seniors. So that this way, if there are any questions, we can try to help them navigate through it. We will get you an answer, and we will let you know when and where you're eligible to get your vaccine.
Now, in Yonkers, I've been listening to other states, other municipalities. The distribution of this vaccine is not going as smooth as we would hope, because look, the government is one thing, needs of the citizens is another thing. I want things to run smooth. I want to be vaccinated if I choose to, those that don't. But if I choose to, I want to be vaccinated as soon as possible. Right? In Yonkers, the vaccinations that are going, the people in the front lines, is everything going smooth?
As from what I've heard so far, in distribution to our hospitals, everything seems to be running very smoothly. There's a process as the healthcare professionals have received their first vaccine that 28 days later, or depending on whether it's the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine, they'll come X number of days later for their second. And you are hearing, they warn the people before they get the vaccine that you may feel some symptoms. Sometimes you feel that when you get a flu shot. You'll get the flu shot. Sometimes, you'll get the chills or you get a slight fever. That's what they're saying you may encounter when you get this vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, where you may get the fever, you may get the chills, you may even have a cough. But these are things that seem to subside within 24 hours.
You know what? The other day, for the sake of information, I called and asked, ask questions, so I can give it to the other people so they can know what's going on. I called and asked about me going the vaccine, and actually the person that answered the phone knew that I tested positive back in December.
Because they were watching you on
Yeah. They were watching on Yonkers Voice, and they knew I tested positive. And they also knew that I received an infusion of antibodies on the day that I tested positive.
Wow.
I actually was the first one in Yonkers to take that antibody at the hospital on North Broadway. And the person said, but Ru, people like you that receive the infusion or will be receiving the infusion, even if they are at the right age or front line, if they receive that infusion, they will not be able to take the vaccine for the next 3 months after the infusion.
Okay.
I did not know.
Right.
So this might be information for people that are watching.
Right.
If you took the infusion of the antibodies you will not be eligible for the vaccine for 90 days after. But again, I am not a doctor. If you the best,
Check with your physician.
check with your physician. I'm just giving you the information as I understood it to be, but always check with your physician. If you have to take any medication, anyone recommends something, remember that not everyone reacts the same way. You might take a pill for this, react to that. So always check with your physician.
Yeah, and the virus, look, it's 9 months old, right, give or take. And we've had it in the States here for about a year. We know that it started coming here last January, give or take, but at the end of February, beginning of March is when we knew the resident of New Rochelle had gotten it, and when things really, I think, started to take off locally here for us, and where we really felt the effects of COVID-19 locally. And so we've learned a lot. A lot has changed. In the beginning, they said, you don't need to wear a mask. Even in the beginning, they kept saying, come to New York City, come and visit us, right? Come and, tourism is open. And then tourism shut down. People were encouraged and asked to stay home. Now, yes, wear a mask. And so we've learned a lot. I would say that I do think that wearing a mask helps. Keeping a 6-foot safe distance helps. And I was one of the fortunate ones. I did not show any symptoms. I was asymptomatic, but I carried the virus, right? I was tested for the antibodies, and I have the antibodies. Thank God for that. Now, my case is not considered a positive case to the health department. So Westchester County, New York State, they don't look at my case as a positive COVID-19 case. I wish they did, because I think for folks who had the virus and didn't show symptoms but do have positive antibodies, it would help paint a different picture for us, especially when it comes to the death rate. And it would tell us, number one, how many people really are carrying the virus or the antibodies, how is it affecting our population. I mean, right now in Yonkers, I think in positive cases we show roughly a little over 10,000 since March, right? But maybe we're at 20,000, maybe we're at 30,000. We don't know. We don't know because we're not tracking that antibody number.
Before we go forward, let me give a shout out to my good friend Roy Alexander. Roy, we love you. We're here for you. Be good and stay in touch. Good people. This is my family.
Yeah.
We have to give a shout out. What about this new strain of this virus? Faster rate of infection, more deadly.
I don't know how much more deadly it is compared to the first strain of COVID-19, but it is much more contagious. They say by between 40 and 50% more contagious. And that's what you have to worry about, because even with a mask, trying to keep your distance, it could be out there, and you can get it more easily. So that's why it's important to distribute the vaccine, get the vaccine out to the public, and try to get through as much of the public as we possibly can over the course of the next 3 to 4 months. Now, the United States, I think we were number 30, give or take, in terms of where we fell in acquiring vaccines for 2021. We are well behind many other nations across the world in terms of being able to acquire the number of vaccines needed per capita for our population, which is really sad. So I'm hoping that we can get our hands on more of the vaccine and we can roll out a really efficient plan.
John, as people are telling me, they are hearing the little box. So as I'm going there, let's just keep talking. Give me any information that you see necessary.
Sure. Well, I won't sing and dance today because I don't know, maybe it'll kick that up. And you might be hearing some of the air conditioning. But as I mentioned before, for those who are just joining, my office is going to do what it can to help the residents of my district. Or if you don't live in my district, feel free to give us a call at 377-6314. We will help you navigate through the process to get your vaccine. Whether or not you're eligible, we'll help you get through the website. You may or may not have the ability to receive text messages. We'll do what we can to help you get in line to get the vaccine. and schedule an appointment.
Okay, so guys, call Mr. John Rubbo, Councilman John Rubbo, and ask information. Call and ask. And then make a decision based on information. And the same thing for the vaccines. And, you know, there is a lot of people say, I'm not taking. Whatever your conscience dictates. But make a decision based on data. And now make an informed decision. Now, John, we could not pass this interview without talking about what's going on in the United States today. January 6th, there was an attack at the U.S. Capitol in Washington.
Right.
2 hours before that attack, there was a speech. Someone said, let's walk down to the Capitol. Other people said, try by combat. Most of us know what that means, what those key words mean, and what are they there to ignite or incendiary, you know, the group of people.
Right.
There is people that, especially people from the right, that don't see it that way. It's okay, you know, this country is based on freedom. You can think whatever way you want. I think whatever way I want.
Absolutely.
And as long as I don't press that line to commit violence towards you or vice versa, it's okay. But what happened in Washington, somebody crossed the line and there was violence.
Right.
How do you see it, John?
Oh, like you said, we've seen a lot of different violence over 2020 and 2021. There are many prominent, even Republicans, within the president's own party who are coming out to say he incited this violence and he should be impeached for it. Now,
For the second time.
right, and I think that this time in the Senate, even if the Republicans maintained the Senate, there's a likely chance that he would have been impeached or will be impeached. Now, the dynamic is changing, and so the outcome will certainly be different. And I believe that the House today submitted articles of impeachment, and so we'll see how that goes. You know, it's difficult. It really is difficult because as we go through this process, it will continue to divide Republicans and Democrats. And my hope for President Biden, for President-elect Biden, is that he will do what he can to try to bring us together. Now, if you are a Republican, you may have what I'm often seeing on Facebook is people saying, well, you know, the Democrats were trying to rip down Donald Trump for 4 years. Well, you can make that same case for what Republicans were doing to Barack Obama for years, right? And so, unfortunately, it's much more than Donald Trump. It's much more than Barack Obama. It's about this partisan divide that has grown. And sadly, as much as a resource as social media is for us, I mean, we can use social media, right, to get the message out today. But as much as a resource as it is, all I see is hate. All I see is hate. One person puts up their personal opinion and they're attacked for it, you know, and regardless of what side you're on. And there's name calling, and it is as beneficial as the platform is to get information out. I think what it's done is it's just continued to divide us. You know, at one point, you could sit around the bar and have an argument over, you know, your political opinion. You can sit at the diner and have a cup of coffee and argue your political opinion. And it's just changed. You know, you're not doing it face to face. You're doing it behind the keyboard, behind the screen, and people are saying things that I think are a little bit overboard. But back to what you asked, you know, what the president did the other day was incite violence. There were people who were there who participated in a peaceful way. You know, I think you can look at if you look back over this past summer, we had people in just about every single occasion where there was a march or a protest here in the city of Yonkers over the summer. It was peaceful. And only in one occasion did we have some folks come up from the Bronx. They ran a car into a jewelry store on McLean Avenue. They broke into a pharmacy. And I called them out that these were not part of the peaceful protesters. Now, you have people who were peacefully protesting last week, and then you have people who did what they did to the Capitol, and they should be arrested and charged.
But you know, I think that's what some people are failing to understand. I don't criticize protests. I don't criticize a rally.
Right.
I don't criticize your voicing your opinion, as long as it's done within the law.
Right.
Okay? You're a right wing and you want to support Donald Trump or any other right wing president, that's fine.
Right.
This is United States of America.
Right.
There is other countries that we criticize for exactly the same thing, because democracy didn't exist and you could not voice your opinion.
Right.
So the problem is not with the right wings, the problem is with those that actually took action to express. Because how many people were at the rally? Do you have any idea? I have no idea.
Around 300,000.
A few 100,000. They're not looking to arrest the few 100,000.
Right.
They are looking to arrest some that actually did something.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you one thing. I am not the right wing, and it's no secret. I don't support Trump, and that's no secret. But if I was in Washington, I would have been there, not to participate, but to film. And just because somebody took a picture and that might show Ru Ross in a frame, does not mean that Ru Ross was there to do violence or do anything criminal.
Right. Right. Right.
Just like some right wings, they were there. They were not there to take part in a criminal act.
Exactly.
They were there to express their point of views, and that's fine.
Right.
Now, John, as you know, this is life,
Yeah.
right? And we have a question here for you.
Sure.
Do you regret taking the trip all the way to Washington in 2016-17 for the Trump inauguration?
No, I don't regret it because I was a Republican. He was from New York. I thought it would be a historic occasion. I've never been to an inauguration, and so I went down and wanted to experience what it would be like. There was some violence in the streets around us as we were going to different events. But I spent 2 or 3 days down there. I thought it was a worthwhile experience. We did way too much walking out of the Capitol. But we had an idea of what we were electing in Donald Trump. Someone who was completely different than the rest. I think his actions.
Yep, what's different, John?
Well, but I think his actions over the last 4 years, especially over the last 3 or 4 months, have. Well, I'll backtrack that. Especially his actions over the last 9 months during the pandemic have certainly demonstrated that for me, reinforced why I left Donald Trump's party. Now I think you're starting to see that even Republicans, established Republicans, are stepping away to say, this guy's a party of his own. He's a guy, within his own right. But for me personally, I've always been, very much down center. I believe in issues on the right. I believe in issues on the left. And I just here to help people. I want to help people locally, and that's my objective.
I hear you, and I'll tell you one thing. In regards to you being at the inauguration, if I was in Washington, I would also be at the inauguration because it's something that I guess everyone wants to experience on their lifetime. I wouldn't care less who the president was. It was just an inauguration of the president of the United States. So I would be there. And like you, even though I'm almost 100% liberal, there's things that I do agree with the Republican Party. There's things that I say, it makes sense going that route or that route. Now, tell me how you think about this statement. Before the election, Donald Trump said, I am the only one who can fix this. Meaning, the atmosphere, what was going on. Today, people say, you were the only one who could have destroyed single-handedly the Republican Party. Because it's a business. You liking or not, saying yes or no, the Republican Party of today is not the Republican Party of your time zero, even yours.
Right, and it's evolved, and I think it's evolved more because of Donald Trump. Look, you've had, you have the Tea Party on one side, you have AOC on the other side, and you have people on the right, you have people on the left, and you see people who have been, in office for many decades who are down there doing people's work. And they're there to help when you pick up the phone. I mean, in many occasions, just through the pandemic, we would call Senator Schumer's office because we had some local needs. I had, even as a business owner, some local needs that I needed some guidance, and they've been right there to help guide us. So,
John Galetta, you joined the interview. My mask is right here. The councilman's mask is right there. We are the 60s. We were both positive, so there is no dangers of each other contaminating each other. So we fine. Back to Yonkers. We have primaries coming up soon. The elections are coming up soon. Where are you?
well, I haven't made an official announcement that I'm running for re-election.
That is no secret. We all know that.
I genuinely love the city. I think we offer a lot of really great things. We've had good leadership, especially over the last 8 years, and we've come a long way from where we were when schools were segregated and our communities were shaped differently. We are a different city, and we continue to evolve. I think we have some really great things going on, and I really do love serving the city. I haven't heard of any primary races. Everything seems to be, potentially, right, yet. Everything seems to be general election races come November, so we'll see. I think there's still a lot of questions, too, just for those who are running, waiting on guidance from the state. So some of the process was changed last year when you go out and collect signatures, the number of signatures you need, and how to get through that process because of COVID. It's different. You're not knocking on every single door now asking for someone to come out and vote. Through this, it's really changed the face, so to speak, of running for office.
Now, John, I remember when you ran on the Republican.
Right.
And I remember when you changed parties. I remember talking to the people on your district, the 4th district. They were not happy. Now, have you spoken to them in the last few weeks, maybe a month, about your rerunning, being reelected, and how do they see you now as a Democrat councilman?
Well, a lot of the same folks who may have reached out, may have been upset because I switched parties, and I had conversations with some of them before I switched, but I'm still answering their calls, I'm still answering their emails, we're still solving for problems in the district, whether it be garbage pails around the district, which Mayor Spano has agreed to help me get back into the district, or it's a rat issue in certain parts of the community that we're dealing with because they're coming out of their habitat. They were kind of awoken because of some construction or food source, or it's helping our McLean merchants or Yonkers ANU or our school children. We're still out there to help Republicans, Democrats. I don't ask what your party affiliation is when you come to sign up.
It's not like you want to say, my people.
Right.
We are all your people, okay, if we are in the district that we represent. Yes, you run on a particular line, but once you elect, you are the councilman for the people for the district.
Right.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the dog law. Yes, no, we wanted the opposition that they got against. Okay? No dog law. What happened? How do you see it? Are there other plans?
Yeah, so we're still moving forward with all the improvements in the park. So sadly, we're putting almost $700,000 into that facility, almost $600,000, $575,000. And of all of the money we're putting into that facility, the smallest component, the least amount of money being spent there was the dog run. The seniors spoke their mind, we completely listened, and we scaled it back. And we took it away from where they were going to be using, the area they were using. But that wasn't enough. People felt like they needed to take advantage of a moment. They took advantage of the seniors and drag them out on television. I know you interviewed them, they brought them on a radio show. Even though I told them, this is on the back burner. And I explained that to the seniors. And so, at the end of the day, we have residents who live in that general area at this park who wanted the dog run, and who have since emailed me to say, we're upset to hear it's not being built yet. So you can't always please everyone, right? But
Story of my life.
right. So, but the focus here is we're building, we're making improvements outside and inside. Now, on the outside, we're building a beautiful pavilion that can be used by the seniors, can be used by the community on the weekends or in the evenings, by the teams who are using the fields to play ball. And we're adding what will be the first outdoor fitness center here in the city. Now, I say first, there are some other outdoor exercise equipment around the city, but this will be the first that actually has stationary bikes that you can get on a bicycle. You can use an app on your phone to be able to use some of the equipment. And so it'll be really interactive site that maybe you're a parent, your child is playing soccer or baseball, and you're going to hang around. Well, instead of hanging around in the car, you jump on the bike and get some exercise. So it just helps to promote healthy living. And then on the inside, we're spending $375,000 to handicap accessible bathrooms, to clean the HVAC system, and to do some other work on the inside of the building, security upgrades, door upgrades. Now, some people ask, well, John, why was that work not prioritized over the outside work? And the answer is because every year when we approve these improvements to our parks or our buildings, there's always so much money to go around. And so the Parks Department came with a plan. They said, we want to upgrade the Chiba Center senior site first. Then next year we'll do Coin. And then after that we'll do the next site, and so on and so forth. Which at some point will, ultimately will upgrade all our sites. Now, another question came into play. Well, not so much a question as a statement saying, those sites have been, violating federal law. Well, they have not been violating federal law. These sites were existing, just like you may go into a restaurant and it's not handicap accessible. Well, that restaurant may be 30 years old. And so, a little over time, like here in the city, we're upgrading all of our sites to make sure that they're handicap accessible.
Now, John, before we go further, let me give another shout out to my family.
Yeah.
Also, guys, don't forget, Dos Marias, 200 New Main Street, at the intersection of Nebraham and New Main Street. Come on down, delicious food, Mexican food, also Mexican night. Sometimes they have people here singing, karaoke, and whatever. And don't forget to try out Amarone Venete. It's not the cheapest, but it's guaranteed that it's the best. But if you are on the other side, by the Metro North train station, don't forget to visit Yonkers Brewery and have a beer, chicken wings, or whatever, or just go there and meet people, enjoying good conversation, and making new friends. So, John, when you do an investment in, I'm going to call it the gym, okay, this is in-house exercise place. It's not just the machines. Yes, you might get a budget of whatever X amount of dollars to buy equipment, but there is maintenance. There is a requirement of personnel to train and to make sure that the seniors are okay and know how to use those machines, not to fall, not to get sick, so the city cannot be liable. At least putting everything that we can to minimize any issues. Is the budget appropriated for that as well?
So this equipment is all outdoor equipment. So it'll sit outside of the building, accessible from the parking lot. And the company that produces the equipment, which has installed other play equipment, whether it be a playground or exercise equipment around the city, they guarantee their work, they stand behind their work, and so if anything happens to the equipment, we can call Comp and they'll come on out. This is a company that's on state contract, so they're doing a lot of work around the state of New York. And so they're standing behind their equipment with guarantees for 10 years that they'll come in and make upgrades to anything that needs to be upgraded.
Okay, but what about for the citizens, for the senior? He goes on the machine, he's not checking his blood rate, and you over-exercise, he has a heart attack, falls, gives you sick. Are we,
Well, you know, anyone can always sue us,
but are we
it's-
taking any steps to minimize being sued? Or people have to sign, there is a sign, look, exercise at your own risk. How is the city taking steps to?
Sure. So this is very similar to if we build, you know, a park and we have monkey bars and the kids climb across the monkey bars and they fall and they break their arm. You could sue the city. If you're walking around the track, let's say you're at Lincoln High School and you're walking around the track and God forbid you have a heart attack, you know, you're using a city property. And so there are a lot of ways that the city, especially in today's environment, can be liable or on the hook. But this is equipment that people can use at their own risk. There'll be signage that explain how to use it. If you are technologically advanced, you can go onto the app, which will be set up and see, you know, track your miles, your calories on the bikes. And all the equipment that's there has been designed so it's very self-explanatory for those who are using it. So there's always a liability. Even if you step into one of our buildings, God forbid you slip and fall, you know, the city's liable.
Yeah. But if I walk into one of your buildings and the door that was supposed to be hanged is not hanged, and that door falls and cracks my head, then it's a different story. I'm just asking questions at the people. I'm not trying to put anyone in the position.
Sure.
Let's now go back to the rats. You have complaints on the issue. Nader has, not Nader, my apologies. Mike has complaints. He actually, when he ran last time, rats were an issue. All the other council people have problems with the rats. Rats are everywhere in Yonkers.
Sure. We're surrounded by water.
Yes, there is rats everywhere.
Right.
We've been invaded and surrounded by rats. Now, I don't know if we have more rats today than we had 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. Probably because we have more construction going on now than we had 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And we are shaking their heads. They're coming out.
Right.
What is the city doing to fight the rats?
So Councilwoman Diaz approached Public Works with a system that she had come across, and it's a box. And the rats are attracted to the box. They go up in, but they can't come out. And so there's a company that comes in, and there's a counter on the box, so they'll have a sense of how many are out there, right? And so there were about, I believe, 4 placed around the city, you know, as a pilot program. And all credit to Councilwoman Diaz, she really stayed on top of it to make sure that this was being handled. And from what I understand, the one box put in my district, out of 28 rats that were caught, 12 were in this one box. And so it's an issue all over the city. You know, some a little bit more prevalent than others. And it depends on the environment. It depends on, like you said, was their habitat shaken? You know, what's the construction like in the area? What else is going on? Is there a food source? Did you cut off their food source or water source? So strategically, we can put these boxes around the city. We were able to add a little bit more money to the budget last year to try to combat this, and I think we're working on that. So, you know, Councilwoman Diaz, this was one of her issues she really took and ran with, and it's benefiting the city.
Now, John, what's going on between you and Councilwoman Chanel? Because, you know, we hearing things. I introduced her. I actually also contacted you to give me some bite on the house. You were to call me back, but I know that sometimes we need to go back, but things happen and we have to focus on what's important.
Right.
We never spoke about it. She did. What is going on? Because we seen that Chanel At least that's the impression that people are getting, okay? And then sometimes perception becomes reality, okay? That she's fighting for the people. The housing, the 20%, but you are not, okay? And people think that you have the motives. Why you're not fighting for the people? You're a business owner, probably you're better off financially than most of us, so you don't feel the problems the same way as the lady was looking for food and sleeping at the bench on the park. So we have different ways of feeling the problem. Sure. Tell us what's going on. Are you on one side of the fence and Councilwoman Cheney is on the other? Are you both working with the same goal of helping the people of Yonkers? Why? How much you want to subsidize the department? Is that 10% or 15% that you are looking for? What is it?
So,
please explain.
Yeah. I don't think that Councilwoman Williams and I are on different sides of this issue. I think she's here and I'm here, and we just need to figure out how to get to the same objective.
John, let me interrupt. Now, when I remember when this new body was elected, I was there in that very first meeting that you were appointed as the head of the housing, what's the real estate? Sure. You and her have been always here. I don't remember at one point where you both, even if it was from a distance, but you guys had the same focus. I wouldn't say that. I saw you always, you guys, parallel to each other, and if you keep running, you would never meet. I can be wrong. I'm not saying that.
Even as a, so when Councilman Williams was first, or running for re-election, I was still Republican.
Yes.
And I like Sinead. I think she's working hard for her district and working hard for the city. I put one of her signs in my storefront, at work, district, because I'm in her district, my business is in her district. I have no problem with her. I really don't. I think she's working hard, and she's trying to do what she needs to do for the people in her district.
Are you working hard for the people? Yes, that's the question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent hours over the summer communicating with West Ed, communicating with a professor who at Pace University and their law school who solely focuses on housing and affordable housing and identifying how to grab that missing middle sometimes, as they call it, because what we do is we're creating very expensive housing on one side and lower income housing on the other, but what about the workforce housing? What about the affordable housing? And so we've talked about this in a lot of different ways, but we have an opportunity, and I mentioned this on one of the calls I was on with my colleagues. We have an opportunity to create something that can be looked at as a national model for cities of our size. We have a very diverse population of residents, and we could create something that really works. Now, if you take one of the models that was originally submitted by the Councilwoman, it really puts a focus on 60% of the area median income. So what does that mean? And this topic can get difficult. So Westchester County sets the rates for area median income. Let's say for a family of four, it's 120,000, give or take. Well, you fall to a different percentage of that income level, right? So if you're focused on 60% of area median income, what it does is it pushes a lot of people out. Just, for example, the folks that work in the city council office, if you have a family of four that make $100,000, well, they make too much to qualify for the housing that was proposed in the revisions submitted by Councilwoman Williams. So part of this process, she started a dialogue, which is what we needed. So now we're all at the table, and we can move forward on finding the best ways to make this work. Now, I submitted a very long list of comments, questions, ideas to my colleagues that I wanted us to just, be able to engage and talk through. And so I would still like to work through that and get a sense of how do how do we create the most workforce and affordable housing as we
But
possibly
John,
can.
let me put it in this way.
Yeah.
Most of us did not go to college. Many of us, what you're talking about is formula, this it gets complex and will not
Complex,
understand.
very complex.
So give us in a sound bite that the general public will understand and digest.
Right.
Okay? Now, you talked about this professor that is doing this study. You told me this about 6 or 7 months ago. You even said that you were waiting to talk to him so we could come on our show and explain. Now, 8 months have passed, 7 months, don't give it a 10. What has been done?
So, as of last week, Wednesday or Thursday, the city brought on board, the city of Yonkers has brought on board a firm that has written affordable housing ordinances for places like Detroit and New Orleans and New Haven. And so they're going to be working with us. They're going to be interviewing people on the council. They're going to be interviewing people in the community. And they will identify the stakeholders, the people out there who they feel need to have a place at the table and give input, to sit down with them and get a gauge for what the need is. Now, this is not a study. We don't need to study whether or not we need affordable housing. We know we need it. We need it. So this is not a study. This is a company who's coming in to help us write our ordinance. Because that's what's needed. Like you said, this is complicated, right? We had the city council position, although many of us put in full-time hours, it is a part-time legislative position. And even the people who work for the city of Yonkers, their specialty is not affordable housing. So the goal here was, let's bring in an expert and invest in an expert to help us build what could be the absolute best ordinances possible. So it tells us, how can we build the most amount of units without it hurting economic development? Now, some people will say, no, you could build 20% and the developers will still come. The developers tell us, market rate developers that is, like RXR and some of the people that are building in Yonkers now, they will say, no, we're not coming. If it's 20%, we're not coming. But why play that game of chicken? Why play that game of chicken? Because if we put 20% in place and they really don't build, we get zero. We get no affordable housing. Because this project, or this ordinance is mostly based on market rate developers building affordable housing. And there are so many ways that we can do it. And not to get too complicated again, but I believe there's a way for us to have some of these market rate developers. The developer down here, AMS, who's proposing to build 3,500 apartments over the next 10 years. Well, we should, if we allow them to build some on-site and some off-site, and they can partner with people like West Ham or Conifer, we could build so many more units, and we can really achieve what both Councilwoman Williams and I want to achieve, which is build more affordable housing. But it's how you get there. And I think how we get there is to have a professional come in and outline exactly how we get there. And that's what the city's moving forward with.
But you know, we, the people of Yonkers, feel the impact of housing. I'm sure that you don't, and I'm sure that Shanae don't. But you two, and the other councils, are the ones with the power to make decisions that will benefit or hurt the people of Yonkers. I'm going to throw at you a challenge, because we the people will need to know. Because when I ask you about housing, you give me an explanation, and I'm here and I said, it makes sense, yeah. Bring investors, bring builders and all these. If I talk to Shanae, she makes sense. Yes, Shanae, you're right, we need 20%, isn't it? I'm going to throw this at you. Would you take a challenge and do a sit down with me, Shanae, and you, okay, together at the same place, broadcasting this way? You can explain your position, she can counter you, or vice versa. all for the best of the people of Yonkers, so that people can understand your position and her position, and why you think we should go that way, and why we think she should go that way. Would you be interested?
Yeah, if the councilwoman wants to sit down, I'm more than, I actually, as I've come to learn more about this topic, I enjoy talking about it. And I will always give my opinion. Now, that may not be the opinion of everyone, right? But
We might not like them,
but I'll give my opinion on how I think we can get to a place like 20%, if 20% is the number. Now, I presented a plan over the summer to my colleagues that included a spreadsheet on how we could get to 20%. But I didn't get any feedback from the councilwoman on it. So maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But I put the effort into trying to figure out how we can get there. And I think the councilwoman and I both have the same goal, which is we want to build more affordable housing. And I completely think that both our hearts are in the right place to get it done.
So Sinead, if you are up to the conversation, Councilman John Rubbo said he's on it. If you want it, let's make it happen. Not as a competitive mode, but as an information for the people of Yonkers.
Yeah, look, at the very least, people will understand where I'm coming from, they'll understand where she's coming from. When you talk affordable housing, there's a lot to consider too. You're talking about senior housing. Seniors need affordable housing. We don't want to price them out of our city. And maybe they live in a single family, they've saved as well as they could, but when you're retired if you're retired as long as you worked, at some point it's difficult to make ends meet, right? And so sometimes your greatest investment is maybe a home you purchase, but you want to sell your home, move into something smaller, and you need an affordable place to live. And so affordable housing can include senior housing. It can include things for people that are most in need.
Now, John, I know this is not your issue, but on North Broadway, by the Ukrainian church on North Broadway,
Okay.
there is some work going on there.
Okay.
Trees being cut at a large pace.
I noticed that.
Yes. Do you know what's going on there?
I wish I did. I was driving back from the dentist on Friday, and I saw it, and I haven't heard back from the building department yet as to what's going on. I inquired, but I haven't heard back yet.
Well,
It was just on Friday.
But now, Councilwoman Sinead has shown intent to run for the Westchester County. If that happens, if she wins, if she runs and wins, who will be taking her spot?
Oh, I don't know. I have to get my crystal ball.
Because that's how she became a councilwoman. So there was a vacancy, and Mayor Spano appointed her. Do we have any indication or any indicators who will be taking her spot?
No,
I'm just asking.
No, if I did, I would speculate if I could, but I really don't. And you know what? I have to commend Sinead because Councilwoman Williams said she put something in her mind. She wanted to run for county clerk. She's a very young, energetic person and very solid ideas. Yeah,
We might disagree here and there, but she's a bright young one.
Right. And I think at the end of the day, she probably delivers some things to the county clerk's office. I don't know whether or not the county. At first, I heard the county clerk was not running. Now I heard he is running. So I don't know.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Now, John, let's talk about the promises and accomplishments. Okay? Because I tell people all the time, listen, vote for somebody who has a record. Vote based on record, accomplishments. When you ran, you made some promises. Of your promises, what have been your accomplishments and the things that you could not accomplish? For whatever reason, because look, sometimes I might promise something that I want to accomplish, but I have to play within the team, and I might not be allowed or can't fulfill the promise that I made. Not because I didn't need to, because I couldn't do. So what are the things that you promised and delivered, and the things that you promised and wish you could have delivered?
So when I ran for office 4 years ago, one of the things that I really wanted to try to hold the line on first year that I had come into the council, along with some of my colleagues, we were faced with raising the taxes over the tax cap. Now, you can never, keeping taxes flat is theoretically a nice thing. However, in my first year on the council, our expenses go up. And you can make cuts, as we have. I remember as a Republican sitting around the table with Mike Green and Anthony Moranti, and we sat there for 2.5 hours, and we just started cutting. And we just started crossing things out, things that we thought that we could reduce. And when we went back to the auditors and our consultants who help us with the budget process, and to the finance department, they said, well, John, you guys cut out all of the crematory services for the animal shelter. Now they can't cremate the animals. And so a lot of it was a bit of a learning curve for us to get a sense of where the money's spent, how to make reductions. And in that budget, we took what we proposed as $4 million in cuts, and we were able to get down to around $2 million. And so we made cuts. But at the same time, healthcare, health insurance, both in the city and on the schools, went up well over $10 million. And you need to make that up somewhere. Just $2 million of cuts did not suffice for a $10 million increase in healthcare. That year, we also had labor contracts that needed to be satisfied that were signed and agreed to. So that year, the property taxes went up about 6%. Now, since we've been able to keep them under the tax cap. So last year, for example, the average house, if it's assessed at $11,000, which is the average assessment, so that's a house that's roughly, say, $500,000. And so that on that assessment, you were looking at property taxes go up around $30 a month, so about a little over $300 a year. I did a spot check on some of the properties in my community. Some went up $20 a year, some went up $30 a year. I have a 2-family home, so mine went up a little bit more. And so everyone was impacted. But the impact wasn't $100 a month, it was $30 a month. It was basically by the cost of living increase. So taxes were one, and we've been able to maintain taxes without having to cut and really dive into cutting services that affect people. Because then you see spikes in crime, and even some of the spikes in burglaries that we did see over the summer. If we would have made cuts to the police department, we would not have been able to handle those as quickly as we did. So that's where the taxes go. I voted on a budget that had the single largest increase to the public school system that has ever been made. We increased the public school system budget by $12 million in 1 year. And the way the system works is every time the city of Yonkers gives money to the Board of Education, it's recurring. You can never take it back. The city of Yonkers, it always has to stay there. So we made a commitment, not just for that year, but for going forward, every year we're going to give the school system $12 million more. But that was in 1 year. We did $1.5 million in the first year, and I believe $1.5 million last year. In addition to all the money we've invested in fixing our schools. This year for our school system, we invested $3 million to be able to provide technology and things that are needed so that the kids can learn both in hybrid and remote. So that this way we can provide our school children what they need. The other accomplishment, and I'll let you, I know you want to ask me a question. So I promised something I've been wanting to see for a long time. I promised that I would deliver a streetscape program to Yonkers Avenue. And a streetscape program is, if you look at McLean Avenue, at Main Street, at Larkwood Avenue, at Midland Avenue, South Broadway, you'll see that there's the red stamped concrete, all new sidewalks, nice decorative lighting, and it really cleans up the area. And so that'll be starting in April. It's something that we were able to get into the budget last year, and we're going to be doing a streetscape program on Yonkers Avenue.
So guys, don't forget, Dos Marias, 200 New Main Street, intersection of Nepperham and New Main Street. If you come down here for a delicious meal, don't forget to try a glass of wine or a bottle of wine if you come with other friends. If you are on the other side, by the Metro North, stop by Yonkers Brewery, try one of the beers, with chicken wings, hot and mild, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything you want.
Bring friends, have an afternoon, 2-3 hours, chit chat, make new friends, expand your horizons. Everything has a need. Okay? I want this, I want that, I want the service, right? Don't you dare raise my taxes. But I want this, I want that, and all this stuff. Right? Everything comes with price. Okay? Should we going forward, when we hear somebody who's seeking an elected position say, I'm not going to raise your taxes, should we believe you or? Because look, things are not getting any cheaper.
Right.
Cost of living goes up.
Right.
Unions ask for raises. Things cost more. The car that you drive from the city costs different today than it cost 10 years ago. So all those things have a price.
Right.
And you have to pay for it. How you pay for it? By taxes. You have to generate. This year we lost. How much have we lost? Have we put the number to it? How much have we lost with these oil prices that we have to make up for?
So we're continuing to look at how much we lost, but just in closing last year's budget alone, there were nearly $40 million in revenues that were lost. Those were hotel taxes, sales tax, the income tax kind of stayed neutral. We lost a little bit on income tax, but it was mostly neutral. So we did take, we lost tens of millions of dollars in the pandemic, and we did not make a cut to services. We maintained city services, and you're right. At some point now, that's going to come due, and we're going to need to figure out how to get through, through the next few years. And you need a good, solid plan to get through the next few years, and it's required. And every single year, the city of Yonkers outlines and publishes a 5-year plan. That is done by the mayor's office, by the finance department. It's not done by the city council, it's done by the city.
Now, John, you might know what this question means. Try to know. So I'm going to ask you, and you tell me if you don't make me sure. Why, this question comes from Dylan Dorian. Why hasn't the city stopped the pension padding hours? Do you know what that means?
Pension padding?
No, yeah, pension padding hours.
Right. So,
You know what that means?
yeah, so what they're asking is about overtime. So New York State allows certain civil service employees to work hours. And if there's an open shift, then someone needs to fill that shift. And when it's filled, the overtime hours count towards the pension. Now, if you take a look at any of the Con Edison work that's going on the street, Con Edison pays us for not only the base rate, but they'll pay us in a calculation that the city's
Details and
right. But it also goes towards the future. It also goes towards pension and costs. Now, Yonkers is not the only municipality that this occurs. It happens in every municipality across the state of New York. So if whoever asked the question, I don't want to kick it up the line, but it might be a question for your state representatives, because we are working in the parameters and the rules that are provided to us, and this is something that is not illegal and it's allowed in the city. And we do carry most of the. If you take a look at our city budget, and we can go through that one day, but a lot of the costs that we carry every single year are for retirees and people who have worked in the city at one time or another.
And lots of people think that one of the reasons why we are facing the financial issues of today is because of those pensions. People get.
Potentially, but if you take a look at it, I know if you live in Yonkers, you say, my property taxes are so high. But if you look at your property taxes in Yonkers, just take a look next door at Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon is significantly higher than our property taxes here. Or if you take a look at other parts around the county, they're higher in other parts of the county than they are here. And that's part of the reason why our property values are so high right now. I'd encourage you to sit down with the local realtor, and they will tell you how high our property values are right now. And I attribute a lot of that to the level of our property taxes. They may not be as low as New York City. We don't have that same wide base, but considering where we are in Westchester County, I'd say they're relatively low.
Now, John, I don't like to go all night and shoot back and forth, but unfortunately.
I know, we can just keep talking.
Yeah, we have.
Otherwise, we'd be opening these lots.
That's it, we have to conclude sooner or later. And I'm going to end on this.
Sure.
Homeless population in Yonkers. It's sad. Okay? I'm going to tell you just a brief story. There is a lady that's been staying right here behind this building.
I saw her this morning.
I saw her this morning. For the last 2 or 3 nights, I've been bringing her every food. And the first night I went there, she told me, get the F out here. I said, okay, because I understand that some of them are going to, not that I'm a doctor, but the way they react, I can, formulate an opinion. Then I left the food there, went away, called 911, said, we're paying somebody that might need help. They said that they would send somebody in the ambulance and a police officer. Perhaps they came, I'm not sure, but sometimes people don't want to be helped. Okay? And the police cannot force them to be helped. So the next day I came around, and she's there. I came here to Alfonso. Alfonso actually, I came to buy, but Alfonso said, no, it's on me. Got some chickens and French fries. I brought it to her. She told me, put it over there and get the F out of here. I said, okay, I put it there and left. But the problem is the homeless. I understand lots of people don't know that homeless in Yonkers is not Mayor Spanier's administration issue. It's a county issue. Correct? But I also know that they are in my city, in Yonkers. And the mayor of my city is Mike Spanier. John Rubbo is a councilman and the other one. So one way or the other, it becomes our city's problem. Okay?
Yeah.
They don't have a place to go to the bathroom, and they have their needs. Businesses don't allow them to walk in and relieve or help themselves. You see them on the sidewalk, as I have, bringing their pets down and doing whatever they need to do. Yeah, I criticize them, but at the same time I say, where do I expect them to go?
Right.
So it is a problem.
Right.
I know that right by your business. They're there, and I'm sure that you don't like it, your customers don't like it. So this problem is affecting not just residents, it's affecting businesses, it's affecting halls in Yonkers Game Square, that beautiful halls for rent, but people go online and look at, oh, beautiful picture, let's go there. But once they get here and they see the traffic of homeless around, going to the bathroom parking lot, you say, I don't want to have a wedding here and bring my gas here.
Right.
So
this is county. So the county has a department that within social services that would come out and help the homeless population. The city of Yonkers, though, we don't ignore it, and our police department has a very close relationship with that department, with that county department. So some people, especially over the summer, we heard, why is the police department involved in that? And so at times, especially the folks who are not looking for help, right? Like this woman was sitting out on the street. Sometimes people can get a little violent, and you just need to be prepared. And so someone from the county, a social worker comes in, and they're just with the police officer. But the social worker does all the talking, and I've witnessed it, where they'll encourage someone, come up to this shelter, come up to that shelter, let us bring you here. But 9 times out of 10, if you want help, then they will take advantage of that help. But the people you see that are sitting on that picnic bench, they don't want the help, unfortunately. And that's the challenge, is you can't force people
But
to come in.
sometimes they have mental issues, they don't
Exactly.
realize that they need help.
Right, right. And so the city often has this conversation with the county. It'd be great, I think, even for you, if you could have someone from that Westchester County office come on, and they can explain, you know, what they see on an everyday basis, how they do try to bring people in. You know, and some people, yes, they're facing mental illness, or they're facing substance abuse, and they don't want to admit it, they don't want to solve that problem, and everyone deals with different levels of it. And so it hasn't gone unnoticed. The city's working with the county, and you know, we'll continue to work with the county. It's saddest now when it's 10 degrees out at night and you see someone, you know, suffering.
But let me tell my audience, just a piece of advice based on my experience. I know that all of us have a soft heart, and sometimes we want to help. But sometimes those folks are a little bit unstable. And we, as a private individuals, we are not trained to deal with them. So when you go there and help, maintain a safe distance, because sometimes the reaction might be unpredictable, right? And they might react in a way that you don't expect, so you need to maintain a distance. It wasn't long ago, I don't know if you remember this case, right in front of La Piñata, a woman, which happened to be a homeless woman, was stabbed by a man who happened to be a homeless man from the Sherry community.
Okay.
Do you remember that case?
I don't know.
That was maybe a year or so ago.
Okay.
That very same man was the man that killed the other man on Levine by Ashburton Avenue.
Wow.
Also stabbed.
Right.
So you might see somebody like that sitting down, you think he needs help, you might go there to help, try to do something nice,
Right.
and the reaction might not be what you expect.
Right.
So people, you need to be careful. You need to think of those things. Yes, you want to help. You also want to be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's in many cases why the county goes with the police department, just for that safety.
For that safety.
Yeah.
So guys, this is it. I don't know if there is anything that you would like to bring it up.
I want to thank you for letting me come on. I know originally I came on. I was talking about, for those who missed the beginning, my office will help you navigate if you need that help through the process to understand, are you eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine? You can call my office at 377-6314, and we will try to help you, especially for seniors who, you may not have a computer, you may not be watching this, but if you know someone who needs help and navigating through, we want to help you. Also, we were just talking about earlier when we first started how some of us don't even realize that we had the virus or have the virus. Myself, I try to be very careful since the beginning. I wore a mask, I keep socially distanced, I wash my hands until they crack. And as I was explaining to Ben, I tested positive for the antibodies, which means at some point the virus came through my system and I didn't know it. And so luckily I have the antibodies. I'm one of the fortunate ones to not have gotten sick, as so many know what that's like. But that's also one of the other reasons why Ben and I are still at a distance, but without our masks today. He's had the virus and apparently I have, so.
Yeah, but we both have the masks.
Right.
Once we get outside, as soon as this is done, before we leave, we put it on, as you should put it on. The mask might not help you 100%, but it might help you 75%. So, anyways, thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for watching. Until next time.
Thank you.